Hi, Tim Gazer, Master Sommelier here. In this segment, we'll be exploring Alto Adige wines and what a great and versatile partner they are with foods. Joining me today is Chris Bagetta, who's been a sommelier at top restaurants in San Francisco, New York. Thanks, Chris, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
And you know, Chris, you were in Alto Adige last fall, and tell us, how did you find the wines there in terms of pairing with food?
I think the wines have tremendous possibilities in terms of food and wine pairing. A lot of people think in terms of flavors when talking about food and wine pairing, but I think it's so important to talk about the structure as well. And one of the things that I was really impressed with is this sort of fantastic, zippy, racy acidity, great texture in the wines, and they're just incredibly versatile.
I found the same thing. We've got a glass of Gewürztraminer, but before we get to that, why don't you tell us about these two dishes?
Absolutely. So we have in front of us today, we have Gulf prawns with an almond couscous right here, and then also tuna prepared with celery root puree, radish, mushrooms, and micro-arugula.
Fantastic. How did you like the Gewürztraminers when you visited?
I love the Gewürztraminers. Gewürztraminer has this wonderful texture, opulent fruit flavors. It's very aromatic wine. But in the Alto Adige, it really preserves great acidity, which I think can sometimes be a struggle for this grape varietal. And for that reason, I think it works so well with richer fish dishes like the tuna here, with some of these bolder Mediterranean flavors like the almond couscous. It really is an excellent food and wine pairing.
Right, because I think what you're trying to do is find that sweet spot of a wine with just enough density and texture, and yet the acidity, so it's light on its feet, and it doesn't really get in the way of the food.
Exactly, it's all about balance, and the structure of these wines. I think the texture of the Gewürztraminer here really is an exciting component to the wines.
Yeah, and absolutely delicious.
Absolutely.
Now, Chris, aside from Gewürztraminer, what were some of your other favorite pairings in terms of Alto Adige wines?
Sure. I was really impressed with the examples of Pinot Grigio from this area, as well as Pinot Bianco. And I find that these wines from the Alto Adige have great versatility with food and wine pairings. It's almost like squeezing a little bit of lemon on dishes. It adds that sort of flavor and refreshing acidity. So, Pinot Grigio, I love it with even bolder flavored seafood. I think it works very well with shellfish, crab in particular, roasted fish, roasted vegetables, things like that. I really like Pinot Grigio as a pairing there. And Pinot Bianco even has a little bit more texture, so it can stand up even with some lighter meats. Dumplings, I think, work really well with Pinot Bianco. And even, whiter meats like veal, I think, can work really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Both wines are so versatile, and again, it's this purity of fruit, the density at the same time, the lift that this vibrant acidity gives the wines.
Absolutely.
Now, Chris, we've talked about the indigenous grapes. What about Sauvignon Blanc? How did you like the Sauvignon Blancs from Alto Adige?
I love the Sauvignon Blancs. I was really impressed, especially when I was in the Alto Adige areas like Turlano and Adriano. I thought we're producing some really exciting styles of Sauvignon Blanc and a diversity of styles as well, from sort of more fresh and unoaked styles, but some producers were doing a little bit more with Lees Contact, a little bit more of not so much new oak, but a little bit more of the oak and a little bit more of a textured style. So again, there's great possibilities for pairing with food and wine. Things like fresh vegetables, asparagus and Sauvignon Blanc, I love. Right. So yeah, they're really exciting examples of the varietal from there.
So Chris, tell us about the wine we have here.
Sure. So in the glass here is Schiavi, which is one of the grapes I was really impressed with when I was in the Alto Adige. It has this wonderful explosion of tart red fruit flavor, but it remains pretty light on its feet, has great acidity, and is very complementary to a wide variety of food.
And how do you think it would work with a fried chicken salad?
I love it with fried chicken. The fried chicken, it does have a little bit more texture, and the lightness of the Schiavi goes really well as a counter to that.
Great. And the duck confit?
The duck confit, absolutely. You have here the fruit flavors of the pomegranate and the apple, and the Schiavi definitely brings those forward, as well as the confit means cooked in its own juices, so you have a little bit more richness in this dish. And again, the wine offers a really nice pairing with that.
Absolutely. I don't know about you, but some of my greatest food and wine memories of Alto Adige and the trip were with Schiavi.
Yeah. And I love it served with a little bit of a chill as well, just a little bit colder than some other types of red wine. Really helps to make those fruit flavors pop.
So Chris, I think, in the dishes that we've shown in these wines, what we found across the board is just how versatile the wines of Alto Adige are as food partners. And we talked about the purity of fruit, the refreshing acidity and lift that all the wines have. And we've shown quite a few pairings here today, but I think people could explore, don't you?
Absolutely, and I think with some of these varietals too, you can break some of the traditional rules. I think Schiavi with fish works very well. There's a lot of possibilities here.
Yeah, well, I'd like to thank you, Chris Bogetta, for joining me today and really exploring the possibilities here with Alto Adige wines and food.
My pleasure, thanks for having me.